flag. That's a flag. Awesome drive, man. Awesome drive.
It's nice to close out a race like that. That was awesome.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to 2023 season episode 29 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. As always, this podcast is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the drivers of the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself launched on social media in 2014. Each weekly episode of the podcast offers an in-depth analysis of Ryan Blaney's latest NASCAR Cup Series race, plus news, notes, and a lineup of special guests all throughout the year. This week, we break down the number 12 team's run in the Verizon 200 on the road course at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Steve, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. And this time, we're back to the normal deal. We're back on Zoom, several thousand miles apart, whatever it is, from Ohio to Florida. But thank you again for being the host last week. It was really cool to actually be able to do this thing in person, and see you next year, I guess.
Yeah, we'll do it again. You know, we use the famous wall of hoods. I need to make some more when I'm at it, and people are getting on me. I got all kind of projects I gotta do. I'm making like I've got 2 or 3 actual hoods I'm making for in my garage area that, I just saw a post about that somewhere on in Discord or something where they're talking about sheet metal. Where can you find sheet metal? And there really isn't a lot out there. So I just make my own. It's not authentic, but it looks pretty on my wall.
No, and it was great to see, finally see it in person. It's kind of cool to see all that hard work that you've put into that over the last couple of years. So fresh off this Verizon 200 at Indy, possibly the last time they're going to run the road course, at least for now, at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The race itself, I thought, was pretty decent, and we weren't there, so shocker, it did not rain. Sorry for everybody in a couple weeks when I head to Daytona. Don't blame that one on me. It just rains all the time in Florida. It's just a coincidence, I promise you. But it was a dry weekend, at least for the Cup Series, and a race that talked about a few different races this year that got to play out naturally. This is the third or fourth or so road course race of the season that we got to see with no stage breaks. And this one resulted in one natural caution that happened very early on in this race, and then it ran green flag the rest of the way. So what are your thoughts on that? The fact that it got to play out naturally, just the one caution, no stage breaks, and the fastest car pretty much ended up winning. There may have been one guy that could have challenged him.
Yeah. Actually, there were probably 3 fast cars. I would say Suarez, of course, Michael McDowell, and then Chase Elliott.
Yeah.
Those 3. And that's the thing, is those 3 were head and shoulders above the rest. The no caution thing changed pit strategies a hair, but not a lot. What you saw was guys running either short or long to get inside the window, because some of the guys pitted early in that early caution. And I don't think there was enough tire fall off for it to make a difference. Like pitting earlier than somebody else, getting back out there with the fresher tires, you weren't making up enough ground. It wasn't like the tire fall off was 2 to 3 seconds where you could make up a spot or two, by being on the track. So then it was just a matter of not making your mistakes, and some guys did, some guys didn't, as we'll find out. Some guys messed around with the wrong guy.
We don't get to say that very often.
And found out, Yep. That's one of my better TikToks. The song choice was awesome.
Yeah, I would agree. And you mentioned, pit stops being a little bit more important, and you don't usually see, like, during green flag cycles, if a team's a little bit slower than another one, especially on a place like a road course, it's not going to make that much of a difference, but it did. I mean, some of these mistakes were big. So, we're talking about 10, 15 second longer stops. But I think even early in this race, there's the 34 team, after taking the lead, came in, had just a tick slower stop than the 99. The 99 did come back out with the track position. So it can make a difference even on green flag stops. And that 99 crew is one of the best on pit road pretty consistently. And you'll see at the end of this race, they kind of cost him a shot at least having a chance to go out there possibly win this race. So, but for Ryan, I say it's this year. I feel like in the past with the older car, he was a little bit better, tick better on road courses with the old package. With this new car, he kind of hangs around his average finish, and we kind of saw pretty much I would call an average weekend. It wasn't a bad weekend. It wasn't a great weekend. It was just okay.
You know what? This is the thing, and I pulled this up real quick because let's talk about the top 10, right? The finishing order, real quick here before we get into and okay, McDowell won the race. He started the race fourth. Elliott was second. He started the race third. Suarez finished third. He started the race first. Reddick, who finished fourth, started second. Bowman finished fifth, started ninth. Briscoe and Martin Truex are the two outliers here. Them two were sixth and seventh, and they started out 13th and 12th. Okay. Larson finished eighth, started sixth. Bell finished ninth, started seventh. And then Van Gisbergen finished 10th, started eighth. Okay, so almost the whole top 10 were pretty close to where they started, within 4 spots of where they started. So partially because they didn't have a caution, a lot of cautions and a lot of restarts, because once you got out there to racing, everybody's lap times were within 0.2 of each other, except for maybe 3 or 4 guys, which we pointed out at the beginning here. So once again, it was whether or not you made a mistake, whether it was on pit road or, you ended up getting tangled with somebody. And, that.
And it's like what you said about the lack of tire fall off. So there really wasn't one guy pushing harder than another guy. So he was at a big tire detriment. But you're right about that with like those 3 cars. If you watched follow along with the times at the end of that race, those 3 were within, 3 to, I think, but at the end, Suarez had made it up to about 5 or 6 seconds back. And then after that, it was like 20. Like there was a pretty big gap between, third and Reddick, I think. So, so I mean that's just the what happens when there's, you said, no stage breaks, everything plays out naturally, and the best cars, I think for another week in a row here, the best car end up winning the race, and wasn't the 12 team this week, definitely wasn't the 22. No. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit. And the 2 did okay, top 15 finish, I think, for him. So, but yeah, like I said, it was an average week, and I'm hoping for. I don't even know for next week when they hit Watkins Glen. I'm always going to be hoping for more, but we definitely just don't need any disasters. But this weekend wasn't a disaster, and things kicked off with practice and qualifying.
Yeah. First off, practice qualifying wasn't on TV anywhere. Okay.
Yeah, it was weird. It was on the app. It was on the NBC Sports app, and I mentioned to you the fact that I watched Xfinity practice and qualifying totally fine on mine. And now I was traveling, so I don't know if that had anything to do with the way logins and your location works in the app, but watched Xfinity the whole way through, totally fine. And when it switched over to Cup, it gave me an error saying that my provider would not allow it. And I mean, I have YouTube TV. I've never had any trouble at home or anywhere else around my normal area being able to watch any of that stuff, exclusive stuff they have on there. I saw plenty of people complaining the fact that they bought into Peacock because Peacock was going to show some of these things throughout the year and do a lot of the post-race shows. And unfortunately, I don't know if it's unfortunate or fortunate, last several weeks they've been able to complete their post-race show on the regular network that they've been on. They haven't had to go over time. So so I haven't really got much use out of the Peacock just yet. It's not that expensive, but it was really weird to me. I don't know if it was just a glitch. And I mean, people were commenting to Bob and other reporters saying like, hey, I'm getting locked out of the app. And even the NASCAR app for a lot of people, including me, I don't know how it worked for you. We couldn't even see timing and scoring for a majority of the time too. That's
the part I was going to get to. Okay. So I got the NBC Sports app. I had no problem. Once again, you're right. It may have been because of where you were, VPNs and all that. But the fact that the NASCAR app was not working, not showing you timing and scoring, and not giving you the scanner was very irritating. And I don't know if it's because it's a Roger Penske owned track and not owned by one of the other factions, or because it wasn't on regular TV. I'm not sure which. but I hope that never happens again. And if it's something to do with Indy or whatever, let's fix that,
And that was kind of the theme of the weekend because people were frustrated that during the Truck Series race, they couldn't hear the scanners. And the excuse at that point was like, oh, it's because it was over at IRP and NASCAR couldn't put their equipment at two different tracks at the same time, even though they do that when they're at two different total zip codes. So I didn't understand that excuse completely. So that was unfortunate because I know there's some folks, even you like to tune in and listen to Josh spot for Zane during those races too. So yeah, it just seemed like the weekend was just kind of weird when it came to the app and scanner and timing and scoring.
So Friday was actual inspection here. I think it was the 24 failed it 3 times. So they weren't going to do qualifying. They had a pass through penalty. Practice, Ryan was in Group B. Group A went out. The top 5 cars in Group A were the 20, the 99, the 1, the 45, the 8. The times were in the 1 minute 29 second bracket, and literally 1 through 18 in that group was between 0.360 and 0.560. 0.2. 18 cars running laps, the fastest lap of those 18 cars within 0.2 of each other. Now, that's pretty tight. The 20 kind of scratched the wall there. So we get to Group B, and Ryan kind of does this thing where from lap to the next lap to the next lap. And I'm watching it on TV and writing it down each time he comes around. He goes from like 31 second bracket to 30.7 to 30.1 to 29.9 to 29.7, all in the first 5 laps. So gets better by like half a second to a second each lap through. And he was about 0.4 from the top 5 at that point. The 10th best in Group B, the 18th best overall. But the top 5 in that group were the 34, the 5, the 38, the 30, the 54, and the 48. And then the 38 spun during near the end of that practice. So we get to the qualifying Group A qualifying 15-minute session. The 22 is on this strategy that they went out and ran a lap and then came back in. They didn't run a full lap, and I don't know. They were talking about, I don't know what it would do, cooling the car off and maybe cycle the tires. Maybe that's part of it. With 5 minutes to go, though, everyone goes, pretty much goes back out too. So now it's like a scramble. Some of the guys who went out and ran a lap early, they come back out and run another lap. And the top 5 is 45, the 99, the 9, the 20, and the 8. And once again, this is a little more spread out. They're about 0.4 between 1 and 5 there, 0.4. So we get to Group B. And the 2 and the 12 seem to do the same thing. They go out and come back in. And I think it was put up a lap. I mean, because Ryan was like, was it 28.95, and then the 2 car was 29.021. Then we get the 33 spinning out. Ryan comes out and runs a second lap, and he runs a 28.7. 6.4, so it's over 1.2 seconds faster. But the top 5 is 34 to 5, the 48, the 54 to 51. And this once again is about a 0.4 gap between first to fifth. So it's getting spread out a little bit more here. He ended up about 10th best in that group. The 99, well, they could do the pole. 99 gets the pole. I got the 91 here in P8, so he actually did a pretty good job on getting himself in the top 10 here. And Ryan is going to start 16th with the 22 starting 18th and the 2 starting 20th. So the whole Penske car is all in a line on the start on Sunday. We get the stages of 15, 35, and 82, 6 sets of tires. Pit stall 4 behind the 5 car in front of the 23 car. So that was kind of interesting. He was pitting all the way at the front end of pit lane. Lap 1 is up to 14th here. And then lap 2, we get that caution for the 31. And I don't know, the 22. Okay, so a lap 1, the 22 almost wrecks Ryan. Not sure what he was doing there. The in-car camera was pretty scary looking because I see Ryan hit the car in front of him. And I'm thinking, what the hell's Ryan? Well, I thought to myself, what are you doing, Ryan? You get, what you brake, did he brake check you? What? but then you see the actual footage, and it's the 22 just plowed into Ryan. I'm sure Ryan was on the brakes and couldn't do anything about him hitting the guy in front of him.
And I mentioned to you that he did the same thing last year to some guys. He just would send it into one. I think he did it one or two times. And so I don't know if he just thought he was going to keep doing that strategy. But yeah, he was going way faster than anybody else and just plowed into him. Yeah.
And in a way, the new restart zone actually helped because they were more spread out coming down into one. And by being more spread out coming down into one, it didn't collect 8 guys. You know what I mean? It was one guy and it affected one more guy. And luckily those 2 guys didn't get crushed on it. But when the 31 gets his caution, the 22 was the one he was tangling with.
He just like missed the turn or something. He went in too hot and into turn and just slid. He like hopped the curb and just slammed into the 31, and 31 had nowhere to go. And man, it's unfortunate because I mean, if you remember, he's the one that ran second to SVG at the Chicago Street Course, so he didn't qualify well or anything, but maybe could have a chance to get a decent finish, but didn't get that chance because the 22 had some issues, and then their day was basically over after that. They finished 30 something, I think.
Yeah, Ryan says something here about needing to be in the first 8 rows on the restart. Says anything further back than that, they lose that lead pack pretty quickly. Jonathan, of course, comes on and says staying out. We restart lap 6. He's up to 12th. This is where he gets hit from. Okay, it was the second restart. The second restart's the one where he gets from behind by the 22. I'm sorry, it wasn't the first restart. It was the second restart. Into one, he gets slammed by him. At lap 7, the 34 takes the lead off the 99. And Ryan is chasing the 19 car at this point. It was kind of fun to watch that. Lap 11, up to 12th, about 8 seconds back of the leader. And then at lap 13, we start some green flag pitting. So 1 or 2 cars did pit during that first caution. I believe it was the 6 car and the 11 car. And that kind of comes into play later on, too, during this cycle because they're going to be able to go a little longer. At lap 13, we're pitting. We get to the end of the stage, and the 34 wins stage 1. So we pit right before the end of the stage. Stage ends, but everything is green. There's no caution at the end of the stage, so it kind of just keeps rolling here, and people are in their pit cycle here. Lap 16, Ryan's in 30th at this point while the pit stops are cycling. The leaders do pit at this point. Lap 18, Ryan runs his fastest lap of the race. 89.646 seconds. And lap 20, the top 11 haven't pitted yet. Ryan's up to 20th. Lap 24, the 17 passes. And lap 25 here, he's up to 15th, but with the pit cycle continuing. At lap 29, the 19 and 20 pass him. He's back to 16th here. It's talking about no turn on the left-handers, no rear grip. Lap 30 up to 15th. Lap 31 is where the fun happens with our our friend AJ Allmendinger. Okay, so
it happens.
it happens. So here's the thing, because I brought it up before we started discussing on the podcast. Twitter yesterday on Monday, I had a little back and forth with somebody. I have no idea who this person is, but I had posted something on Twitter about messing around and finding out, because they posted this video where they showed both in-car cameras of Allmendinger and Ryan. Now, if you're a huge Allmendinger fan, it's all Ryan's fault. But the reality is Ryan was apexing a turn and the left rear gets hit. And it wiggles Ryan pretty good. And because it wiggles Ryan pretty good, Allmendinger tries to come around him on the outside. Now, on Tuesday, NASCAR posted the video with spotter audio. And like you said, the spotter audio, what did Allmendinger's spotter tell him?
Yeah, still there. Still there. And then
still there. And then he went, oh. So Allmendinger wasn't paying attention to his spotter. I don't know if Ryan actually moved to move him. I think Allmendinger may have tried to come across him thinking that he wasn't there, or hoping that he wiggled him enough that he wasn't there. And
you also got to hear you talk about that initial contact that Allmendinger made with Ryan. Dave Nichols, who was a secondary spotter for the 12 team, that we interviewed earlier this year on the podcast, actually is heard saying dive bomb. He died, or like dive bombing, or something like that, like right before the contact happened. So he even saw that coming too. So
yeah,
and that's the initial contact of the 16 into the 12 before Allmendinger spins on the next contact. So
and what do
spotter audio definitely helped.
Yeah, what did I say to you on I think I texted you that AJ Allmendinger thinks he's God's gift to road course racing. Okay. And I'm sure he is. At some point, when you're going up against all the kids in Xfinity series and you beat them all, that's great. That's super. And he does have one or two wins in the Cup series, where he's better than. But you know what's happened since his early part of his career? These guys have all gotten better. These guys actually put time and effort into it. They race 5-6 road courses a year, not 2 or 3. And guess what? That guy that you just made that move on, he's just as good as you now. You may think that you could have got away with that because he just doesn't have the skill or the ability to make up for it, but he has more than enough skill and ability to make up for it. And yeah, and the funny part is that video today, he apologizes afterward to his crew chief. After everything calms down, after he calms down from his rant about he's going to get to him when he gets him, or what he's going to wreck him, or, they play a thing from, I don't know, maybe 10, 15, 20 seconds later. And he's like, I'm sorry, I messed up the race. He did. He knew he messed up the race. Ryan gave him what he gave back what he got. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe Ryan didn't cut up into him. Maybe actually AJ come down across his nose.
I just think Ryan didn't give him any. I think AJ came across, but I think Ryan put his nose in there and wasn't going to back off just because of what had transpired in the turn prior to that. So it was interesting. Outside of that one fellow that you had the back and forth with, it was almost universal on the comments on some of the posts about people liking to see Ryan stand up for himself and things like that. So
the TV broadcast was really interesting because Junior. Junior has personal relationships with a lot of the drivers. Okay. And he says something to the extent of, they didn't show the first part, they showed the reaction. They didn't show the action that caused the reaction. Right. And Junior says, Blaney don't do that very often. That's something Blaney don't really do. So something we didn't see something there. Something caused that to happen. And that's exactly true. The broadcast never got back to it. There was too much else going on. Thankfully, NASCAR did with those in-car footage, because you can plainly see Ryan's coming into that turn, and AJ comes right up in underneath him. I mean, to an angle that he shouldn't come into the turn from. So that's the funny part is everybody thinks that, oh, well, he must have got inside of him. No, he didn't get inside of him. He actually aimed his car like a missile for the left rear corner of the car, not even like trying to hit the side panel. He tried to hit the corner of the car, and he did. And Ryan got loose because of it, wiggled, straightened it out, but gave him momentum to try and go around him. But like I said, sometimes you're going to get back what you give. And messed up his whole day. And really, if he was that skilled of a driver, such a great road course driver, that maybe instead of aiming his car like a bullet and trying to knock somebody loose to make a pass, maybe you would have went up underneath them, got up underneath them under the next turn, and then passed them that way. A door-to-door deal in some of these passes is one thing because you've gotten to position, maybe under braking, to get door-to-door with them. But when you actually just hit somebody from behind to wiggle them so that you can pass them, that's not, that's the same, and it's the same thing with short track racing where that happens too, it's just very frustrating to watch. And luckily Ryan didn't end up being the brunt of it this time, because it seems like he races like a gentleman as much as he can. And, sooner or later you're going to get one,
Yeah, he doesn't have too many issues with people. I think he had, it's been a couple of weeks here now where he had the incident with the 7 car. So, it's a little bit of drama here leading into the playoffs, but we don't see it too often. And I'm here for it. It's okay. It's okay when it's not anything major. As far as we know, there weren't any fisticuffs or anything like that. We might just have to watch what happens this week at Watkins Glen, whether AJ still hasn't reviewed the tape enough to see,
Yeah.
or if he has any other thoughts on it, whether this whole I'm going to get the 12 and wreck him payback comes to fruition. But this was such a, I mean, there wasn't much excitement in the race until maybe the last 10 laps and watching the battle for the lead that was kind of coming into the picture. So I think that's why they really kind of had to play this up early on.
Yeah. The 11 is the leader at this point. Ryan ends up getting passed by the 2 during all that too. But he does get him back later. Josh at one point says there's debris out in turn 1 out of the groove. I mean, this happened a couple times. There was debris reported and they never called a caution because it was far enough out of the groove. Lap 32 up to 16th. Lap 35, the 11 wins stage 2. Ryan's in 16th. And then the 11 and the 6 after the stage ends, they both pit. So like I said, they were able to run differently because they pitted in that early caution. 34 takes the lead here. Lap 37, he's up to 14th, about 23 seconds back of the 34. Lap 39, Jonathan tells him about 10 more laps because they want to get inside their window. We're going to make this a two-stop. Everybody pretty much made this a 2-stop race except for the guys who pitted under the first caution. Jonathan tells me the only thing he sees differently that the 34 is doing is something with 4th gear into turn 7. I've got kind of a question mark there. So they're looking at data and they're trying to figure out, why is the 34 that much better than certain cars, So, he sees something about 4th gear into turn 7. So maybe he's doing a better job of braking there or something. Lap 44. Josh tells Ryan they're doing really good, actually. There's only about 0.3 off of the leaders who all ran long. And Ryan says he really needs some more drive off in the right-handers. Lap 46, Jonathan tells him about the fuel switch because they're running to a point where they might be running close to running out. And 3-car had just pitted recently. He had faster tires. Ryan gets passed by him. Ryan's in 15th at that point. Lap 48, we are pitting, going on fuel. There's a wrench in the window. They just kind of showed this pit stop on regular TV here from the front side. And the pit stop itself goes fine, but they really have to wait on fuel. They know they're going to run so many laps. They need to make sure it's full of fuel. Lap 56, he's up to 16th. At lap 60, 15th, and the 34 has a 3-second lead on the 9 here. At lap 62, they're talking about debris in turn 7 from the 38 car, but nothing. They don't do anything about it. At lap 63, the 11 pits. Ryan's up to 14th. At lap 64, he passes the 6 car and he gets to 13th here. Lap 67, passes the 2 car, gets to 12th. But at lap 74, the 54 car passes and runs back to 13th. Now, the 54, as the race went on, got faster and faster, and he was one of the top cars at the end of the race, really. 34 ends up running Ryan, Ryan it literally is running out of gas on the last lap, throws that switch, finishes 13th. So like we talked about beforehand, these strategies were not all over the place because of the way the pit cycle, were, some ran a little shorter or a little longer because they were able to do fuel mileage, but everybody was pretty much a 2-pit strategy. Didn't give a chance for a lot of passing. And like you said, the 99 in the first pit cycle passes the 34 on pit road. The second pit cycle, they pit at the same time. And the 99 just totally has a bad pit stop. The hose got stuck underneath the wheel. They had to come back around, jack the car back up. And just caused it to be too long a stop. And 34 went back out with the lead. And pretty popular win. Michael McDowell, it's nice to see him win a race where he won the Daytona 500, and he won it under circumstances. He was the right place, the right time, 2 teammates wrecking each other, the whole field wrecking behind him. You're going to take him any way you can get him. I won't complain about that no matter who it is. But this one here was a butt whooping. This one here was, one of the top 3 or 4 fastest cars on the track. Got himself up to the lead, led 14 laps. And then, when he needed to, dominated and held off the 5 car pretty well. I mean, he was running lap times where the 5, even though not 5, I'm sorry, the 9 car. The 9 car was really fast. Elliott was really fast, but could never really close on it, never really get into a point where, and I think at the end, McDowell was just kind of like, almost like the last lap was a victory lap, It was pretty good to watch. He put on a show.
Yeah, he basically kept saying he's just managing his gaps, didn't want to push the car too much. I thought that was interesting. There's a point toward the last closing laps where he told the spotter to don't give him any more information, just update on the gaps every once in a while. The 9 kept, like you said, 9 kind of kept it interesting. I still think we're kind of, we just didn't get to see the possible battle that the 99 maybe could have had, just due to that last pit stop that they just really kind of messed things up. But what are you going to do? I mean, a feel good win, I guess. I know McDowell, I think in the past has raced Ryan a little bit rough. But as a team, for Front Row Motorsports to go out and dominate a race, this is the first time they've won a stage, first time they've led the most laps in a race. And like you said, wasn't kind of a fluke win. I will say he definitely put himself in the right position for that Daytona 500 win, just as Ryan did when he won at the Roval. He probably feels good, just as Bubba did. Bubba wins that first race in the rain and then just goes out and dominates at Kansas. It's as a driver and a race car driver, you don't want to have that asterisk next to any of your victories, especially if it's the only one you have. So kudos to them. And, he went on Denny Hamlin's podcast today that was released today on Tuesday and basically said as much. He was happy to be able to go out there, dominate a race and win, and mentioned some interesting things about, we all know they're a smaller team. They're not like super small, but they're not even, I would say, mid-size. And he was just saying that he hopes with the success that they have the rest of the year that they can afford to buy a Hawkeye. So they can push the limits a little bit more when it comes to aerodynamics and the way they set the body up.
Well, that's the thing, it not only makes the playoffs here, but the owners' points is how they pay out the money at the end of the year. So they make the playoffs now, and if he can move up a round, maybe even 2, maybe he gets the final 8. That's that much more money each time, And so this is something that we know from last year that Ryan, the 12, was not in the owners' points part of the playoffs. So they're in the money right now. They know they're going to be at least the top 16. And if they can, get through one round even, that's even a bunch more money. So yeah. And correct that money is, like you said, a Hawkeye or something like that would be something they really could use. Instead of trying to borrow data off other teams or have some help from Ford, they might be able to do it on their own.
Wanted to talk a little bit about the playoff picture here and the fact that I've mentioned it, I think, the last couple of weeks, getting more and more nervous at the fact that the 12 team hasn't scored any stage points. And because of that, and with their just kind of top 15 finishes the last few weeks, they've slipped further and further in the standings. They didn't move positions this time. They're still 9th, but they slipped like another 10 points or so. And they're only, so they're 9th right now. They're only 1 point ahead of Chris Buescher, who is 10th. So Ryan is minus 164 to the leader, and Buescher is minus 165. And Kyle Busch is in 11th at minus 170. So Ryan just has 6 points over staying in the top 10 there. The good news would be, as far as trying to position themselves to get as many bonus playoff points that they would get once the regular season is over. The 6th place Kevin Harvick is at minus 153. So I think that's definitely still within reach. If they have 2 amazing races, I think 5th place Kyle Larson at minus 132 is kind of still in reach. And the reason this is important, I mentioned, when the reset happens for the playoffs, depending on where you finish in the overall point standings, you get bonus playoff points that you will carry with you through each round. And they can be incredibly important, as we saw last year after that race at Martinsville, where Ryan, was just a couple of points away from making it into the championship 4. So the regular season champion gets 15 bonus playoff points. 2nd place gets 10 bonus playoff points. 3rd place gets 8. And then from there, it goes 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. in ninth position where Ryan currently is, he would just get 2 bonus playoff points, and the 10th place finisher in points would get 1 bonus playoff point. So Ryan has the victory in hand from the Coke 600, so that would be 5. And then he has 3 stage wins, so that would make 8. And then if he got his 2 bonus playoff points, so he doesn't move at all in the standings, he would end up with 10. So he'd be carrying 10 playoff points the rest of the way, unless he adds another win or more stages in the next 2 races or in any of the races of the playoffs. So I just get nervous because, again, he wins the Coke 600. They were leading the points. They're in really good position to maybe win the regular season championship, and then that's just kind of slipped out of their grasp. So, but I do think it's still possible to maybe get to 6th or, 5th, if anything, to just kind of move up and get a couple more, because you never know when you're going to need those extra points.
Yeah, like what really matters is when you get from the round of 12 going to 8, or the round of 8 trying to get to the 4. A couple of the spots are taken up by the race winners usually, as long as they're in the playoffs still. And if you have to point your way around people, those extra bonus points are really, really good to have versus other people. So, yeah, I mean, how about win Daytona in 2 weeks? What do you think? You're going to be there, right?
I mean, we've seen it done before, and it's possible. I mean, he's due for a good run there again. I mean, he wins that race. He runs really well in the 500. Nearly wins the 500 a couple of years ago. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to go out and win Watkins Glen this week, but definitely could have a decent shot at running up front most of that race at Daytona on that Saturday night in a couple weeks, and going to victory lane. I think that would be perfect, and he can drink all the body armor he wants in parent company Coca-Cola's victory lane celebration for that race. So that's the points. That's kind of where we sit. Like I said, I mean, it's so weird being disappointed. Like, I feel a little bit disappointed right now in their points position, where last year we were like in desperation mode at this point in the season without that win in hand.
It could be worse. You could be Bubba Wallace right now. Going into the weekend, Bubba was looking great. You just got to get through the next couple weeks. Yeah. But then all of a sudden you got a guy win a race who's outside the playoff bracket to begin with, outside the top 16. And now all of a sudden the cut line is right below. And if somebody else outside that 16 wins the next week or two, Chase Elliott, he could bump Bubba right out of the playoff race, so what would
and it doesn't even have to be Chase. I mean, it could be a random, Todd Gilliland could go out and win Daytona or something, and then it is what it is. I mean, Chase wins next week, then it puts it to where even like Harvick and Brad Keselowski have to be nervous about who could win Daytona. So
yeah. We could get to the point where we were last year with Daytona, where it's
Truex is top 5 in points. Yep.
Yeah, wrong guy wins, and could you imagine? That's a hell of a scenario. We're 2 weeks out from it, and I don't want to talk anything into it happening. But can you imagine Kevin Harvick, who's had a really, really solid year, a great year, really, and have it 2 guys win, and just how deflating would that be?
Would be awful. But those opportunities to win are going to start later this week as the NASCAR Cup Series heads to Watkins Glen. You can catch the race Saturday, August 19th, or not the race, practice and qualifying starting 12:30 p.m. Eastern time this Saturday. Watkins Glen on USA, followed up later in the afternoon with the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, the Shriners Children's 200, and then the main race is going to come up Sunday, August 20th, 3 p.m. Eastern time, the Go Bowling at the Glen. So that's what's going to be setting up this week. So I want to dive into just a quick recap of what our fantasy lineups and results were from the Indy Road Course, and then move on into talking about who our favorites might be for the race at Watkins Glen. So I didn't have that bad of a week. There's points during this race where I was in the top 10, but unfortunately slipped a little bit at the end, and I ended up finishing 18th overall in points earned. I started Daniel Suarez, got me 51. McDowell got me 59 points. Bell, 32. Chase Elliott, 49. Shane Van Gisbergen got me 29 points, and I left Kyle Larson in the garage. He had 36 points. That swap there wasn't going to put me into the top 10, so I'm not too sad about the fact that didn't happen. In the featured matchups, I picked Reddick over Elliott. That was wrong. I picked Truex over Busher. That was right. I picked Van Gisbergen over Brody Kostecki, and that was correct. And I picked McDowell, the winner, over Justin Haley, and that was correct. So I went 3 for 4 on the featured matchups, and again, finished 18th in the overall standings for just that week at Indy. So what did things look like for your lineup?
Yeah, I got to find the right thing here. This is my problem. I have 3 different leagues I'm in, 3 different lineups, not on purpose. If you go in and you fix a lineup somewhere during the race, if you don't fix all 3, some usages get changed. And
I do have your
this.
lineup.
Yeah, go ahead, because if you want to, I got it now, but it's like I'm missing a guy, totally missing a guy. Now in the other 2
That's
leagues,
what I was going to say. Yeah, you got a no pick.
I have a no pick. And that's the funny part is in the other 2 leagues, I have 30 more points.
Yeah.
So in the other 2 leagues, that guy was in the lineup, and this one it's not. So Suarez, Chase Elliott, Van Gisbergen, Christopher Bell, 2nd, 3rd, 10th, and 8th best guys. So really good, actually. And if I'd had one more guy in the lineup, would have had those, like I said, those 30 points. I had Chase over Reddick. I had Martin over Chris. I had Shane over Brody. And I had McDowell over Haley. So I got 40 points on the bonus points. I got all that right. Just
just leaving the one guy out just kind of kills
one
you.
guy out. And, if you think about it, if I add that 30 points, I mean, I probably still don't make it anywhere near the top 37. I would have been like 28th or 29th, with the 30 points. Where did I end up? Yeah, 52.
Not great.
No.
But some folks did do well, and we'll go through that. The top 10 in points earned this past week at the Indy Road Course and the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. We had a tie for 9th with Cool Guy 2K and Pea Shoot Bill with 262 points earned, and 8th Go Larson 265. Tie for 6th with Penske Fan 24 and Blaney Kicks Beep at 269. Three-way tie for 3rd with Adjuster 4. US Calvin and Blaney's Daisy with 272 points. Second in points earned was Whip Wilson with 275, and eking out the win at the Indy Road Course in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League for this week was Doug QC with 279 points. Let's flip over to the overall standings. So the points earned all throughout the year. I'm sitting in the 38th position now, 4,320 points. You've still hovering around top 15 here. So you're 15th right now, Mez 12, 4,517 points. In 10th, it's Fike 21, 4,575. And 9th, JD Racing, 4,592. In 8th, Penske Fan 24, 4,621. In 7th, Alyssa C, 4,624. In 6th, Christian Dana, 4,653. In 5th, Blaring Idiots, 4,662. Tied for 3rd, we have Go Larson and Eric D15, 4,682. In 2nd, we have Blaney's Daisy, 4,690. And in the lead, in the overall standings, first position, Factory of Sadness 6, 4,773. So again, that brings us back to this weekend's race at Watkins Glen. Again, you can catch it 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday on the USA Network. Chase Elliott, I think. I mean, I don't know. I think I do have some starts left for him, so I can probably still start him this week. Has to be the favorite. He's a multi-time winner at Watkins Glen. I think that's where he got his first Cup Series win. Obviously, it was in the old car. People were saying, he hasn't been any good in the new car. Well, last couple road course races, he's finished up front. He finished second a couple of times here. So what do you think on Chase Elliott? Is this the time that he punches his ticket into the playoffs?
This is 2 guys or 3 guys really you want to look at. Chase Elliott, the 99 Daniel, especially coming off their performance, and then the 54. He's obviously he's pretty good at road courses. So and all guys that need a win, pretty much to get in. So I take any one of those 3 this weekend as I'm already looking at the matchups, because they've already posted the matchups for this weekend's race, and they've got McDowell versus Suarez, and then Chase versus Larson. So, and Larson's another one. And the number of starts, you only have 2 more weeks. So go ahead and use up your starts. Because it resets at the beginning of the playoffs. So if you've got 2 starts, use the 2 starts. If you got 1 start, you only got 2 weeks to use it. So, that's where my lineups are running a little bit thin because I've got certain guys I used a ton, and they're guys running in the top 5 every week. So I got to find some people this week, but I think I got a couple. I already started setting the lineup, so don't mess around. The 99, the 9, the 17, the 54, the 20, and the 8 in the garage. There you go. There's my lineup already.
Yeah, I don't think doesn't sound like a bad one to me. Obviously, we're going to pay attention to Saturday when they have practice and qualifying at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. Thankfully, again, it will be on TV on the USA Network, just to kind of get a sense, because what you want to see is what their average speeds are in practice, and then see where they are when it comes to qualifying, because track position does matter at these races on the road courses where there's no you have to rely on a natural caution. There's no stage breaks doing that, and I'm not sure what the tire wear is going to be like this week, but I believe they're taking the same tire that they've been running at all the road courses this year, so I wouldn't expect it to be too much different.
Yeah, the fact that there's no cautions at the stage breaks makes a huge difference. Hopefully there's no brake failures or anything like that going down into turn 1, because that's usually where you see it. You see everybody going wide into 1 or getting around each other in 1, and sometimes somebody just overshoots it. Kind of wish they changed the restart zone in this one too, just because it seemed to work so well. Indy and Chicago. I think any of them where you got to go down a long straightaway into a sharp 90-degree turn, I think they got to just change that restart zone, make it start way back earlier in the turns, so we can actually see some racing. That's the best part about Indy, and is that there was racing coming down into 1, not just banging into each other. So hopefully we won't see that at the Glen, but we've seen it in years past. We've seen guys get down to 1 and try to muscle each other and just totally knock somebody almost into the stands over there down at the bottom of the hill. But the weather looks like it's supposed to be pretty good. I don't think it's supposed to be any rain Saturday or Sunday just yet, so that could change. Because that kind of be kind of cool to see a wet weather package there too.
Yeah, we could see. I think it was really a small chance there's more of a chance on Saturday than it was Sunday as of now, but we saw with Michigan, the weather can change pretty drastically over the week, and flop back and forth, and then so we'll see. But I'd be okay. I don't mind wet weather racing when I'm not there.
Yeah, second week in a row of pitting the car backwards. Talking to 1 or 2 of the pit crew guys, that they did a pretty good job with it. Like I said, you can watch the videos, the times. It was actually the pit stop of the week there. Was that Pi Tech that puts that out with, they had 11.38 second pit stop. So pitting the car backwards in that first pit stop and 11.38, that's pretty good. 4 tire stop and the fuel. They were probably still waiting on fuel actually on that stop even. So I know the second, if you guys look up the pit stop time, the second one was a lot longer, but once again, they were waiting on fuel. But for 2 pit stops, pretty good. Luckily, they don't get paid by the pit stop. They get paid by the day. So they got a full day's pay for just a little bit of work, which is fine. Hopefully it's the same way this week. Hopefully they only need a couple pit stops and use a little bit of strategy, get themselves out near the front.
So again, if you want to catch this race, the Go Bowling at the Glen, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday. You can watch it on the USA Network. That mostly wraps it up this week for this episode of the podcast. Did want to mention a congratulations out to Dale Blaney. While a lot of the sprint car world was over at Knoxville in Iowa, running the Knoxville Nationals, Dale and several other big name guys hung around the northeast there. Dale went to Central PA to Clinton County Speedway and ended up taking home the victory in the Phil Walter Classic. Again, at Clinton County Speedway is a 35 lap feature event. $6,300 prize for his win. I think it's his 3rd or so win on the season, and it's really great to see the lowrider back in victory lane once again. Picked up a couple wins earlier this year at Sharon Speedway in Ohio as well. So congratulations to him and that whole 32B team. But like I said, I think that pretty much wraps it up for this week's episode of the Team Blaney podcast. I want to thank you all for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more about myself or co-host Steve, just listen to our very first episode that explores our Blaney racing fandom. You can interact with us on Facebook and Twitter at Team Blaney and on Instagram at team.blaney. And finally, we'd like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Established in 2018, this organization supports causes like the Alzheimer's Association and UPMC Sports Medicine through fundraisers, events, and membership in the Blaney Bunch fan club. To learn more, visit RyanBlaneyFamilyFoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Dublin. Check out the TikTok. Hey, and race how you want to be raced.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.